Asalam-o-Alikum. In international economics class, our today topic is Mundell Fleming model. The first thing we need to understand is about output, the interest rate, and the exchange rate. The model presented in this chapter is known as the Mundell Fleming model. It is an extension of the open economy of the ISLM model. The main question we are trying to solve is what is ISLM model? What effects monetary and fiscal policies will have on output, interest rates, and exchange rates? So, general equilibrium in open economy is the ISLM or the BP or the balance of payment curve. To understand the effect of policies on the open economy, we need to use a general equilibrium model. The ISLM or BP model is built around three sorts of equilibria. A. Money market equilibrium, which is known as the LM curve. The real sector equilibrium or the IS curve, or we can say the goods market. And the BOP or the balance of payment equilibrium, the BP curve. ISLM model. The model rests on two fundamental assumptions. So what are these assumptions? All prices including wages are fixed. And the second assumption is there exists excess production capacity in the economy. There is a complete change in perspective compared to classical economics. The level of demand determines the level of output and employment. कि जितना ज़्यादा डिमांड होगा उतना ही लेवल ऑफ आउटपुट जो है वो इंक्रीज होगा, उसमें इंक्रीमेंट आएगा और उतना ही लोग जो है वो एम्प्लॉयमेंट में होंगे. और अगर डिमांड ही कम है तो आउटपुट कम होगा और आउटपुट कम है तो फिर एम्प्लॉयमेंट में अगर लोग होंगे तो उनको वेजेस कम मिलेंगी या फिर उनको नहीं मिलेंगी. दैट्स व्हाई वो एम्प्लॉयमेंट से निकलेंगे तो अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट शुरू हो जाएगी. तो ये सब कुछ कहाँ से डिटरमिन होता है? डिमांड से. There can be an equilibrium level of involuntary unemployment. Why can there be insufficient demand? So criticism of the sales law, as we already discussed in the macroeconomic classes, uncertainty can lead to precautionary saving rather than consumptions. This is the criticism of the sales law. And the monetary criticism is the preference for liquidity can lead to underinvestment as savings are kept in the form of liquidity. The goods market and the IS relation. Equilibrium in the goods market exists when production or output Y is equal to the demand for good Z. In the simple model developed, the interest rate did not affect the demand for goods. The equilibrium condition was given by Y equal to C plus I plus G. Or we can say output is the function of consumption, investment or government expense. Investment, sales and interest rate. In this chapter, we capture the effect of two factors affecting investment. Number one is the level of sales. The second one is the interest rate. So in interest rate or I is equals to output plus and interest rate. Income is a function of interest rate is a function of income and I, or we can say interest rate, output and interest rate. So taking into account the investment relation above, the equilibrium condition in the goods market become Z is the goods market, Y is the income. So these all are equal. C Y minus T, Y is the output, minus T or plus I, Y and I plus G. These are equation we discuss in the macroeconomic classes. Let's examine the IS relation. A reduction in the interest rate has now two effects. Number one, it determines an increase in investment, or we can say demand increases, so automatically output increases. It leads to a decrease of E, or the export minus import, or we can say net exports, which increase the demand and the output automatically increased. So both effect work in the same direction. In the open economy, as in a closed economy, IS is downward sloping, inverse relation between output and the interest rate, or we can say Y and I. So shift of the IS curve. Shift of the IS curve means increase in taxes, shift the IS curve to the left. Financial market and the LM relation. The interest rate is determined by the quality by the equality of the supply of and the demand for money, which is equal to M equals to YLI, which means M is the nominal money stock, or YLI is the demand for money, with the nominal income and the nominal interest. So real money, a real income and the interest rate. The LM relation in equilibrium, the real money supply is equal to the real money demand, which depend on real income Y and the interest rate I. So M by P equals to YLI, or the money demand. This is the equation in the LM relation. From chapter 2, recall the nominal GDP equals to real GDP multiplied by the GDP deflator. So equivalently, Y equal to YP, or Y by P equals to Y. This is the concept where we discuss the nominal GDP equals to real GDP. So the effect of an increase in income on the interest rate. An increase in income leads at a given interest rate to an increase in the demand for money. Given the money supply, this leads to an increase in the equilibrium interest rate. So in graphical presentation, on y-axis we have interest rate, or we can say I, and on y-axis x-axis we have M by P, or real money. So the straight or the vertical line is the money supply curve, and the MD is the money demand curve. So when there is increase in income lead to increase at a given interest rate to an increase in the demand for money. Given money supply, this lead to an increase in the equilibrium interest rate. So the equilibrium interest rate shift from I to I dash. Driving the LM curve, the derivation of the LM curve. Equilibrium in financial market imply that an increase in income lead to an increase in the interest rate. LM curve is upward sloping. So when we drive from the LM curve, the money supply curve, so how we drive the LM curve? So as we already discussed in the previous slide that when the interest rate increases, so the equilibrium also change or become high. So from this we can easily drive the LM curve where A dash is here, A dash, this is, and this is the basic equilibrium before the increment. So the output automatically increases from Y to Y dash. If income rises, money demand for exchange will exceed money supply and interest rate will rise. Therefore, the LM curve is a positive relationship between the interest rate and the income. Point to the left of the LM curve mean there is an excess supply of money. Point to the right imply an excess demand. Shift of the LM curve. An increase in the money supply lead to the LM curve to shift downward. Whenever there is increase in the money, lead to a shift the LM curve down because the interest rate is decreased at that point. So the LM curve shift downward. Putting the IS and the LM relation together, IS relation means y equal to C y minus t plus I yi plus g, and the LM relation m by p equals to YLI. So the ISLM model equilibrium in the goods market imply that an increase in the interest rate lead to a decrease in output. Equilibrium in the financial market. This is about the goods market, and equilibrium in the financial market imply that an increase in output lead to an increase in the interest rate. So the IS curve intersects the LM curve. Both the goods and the financial market are in equilibrium at point I, Y, or we can say equilibrium, or we write it here E. So both are at equilibrium at point E. Fiscal policy activity and the interest rate. Fiscal contraction or fiscal consolidation refer to fiscal policy that reduces the budget deficit. An increase in the deficit is called a fiscal expansion. Taxes affect the IS curve, not the LM curve. So, fiscal policy activity and the interest rate. The effect of an increase in taxes. An increase in taxes shift the IS curve to the left and lead to a decrease in the equilibrium level of output and the equilibrium interest rate. Monetary policy activity and the interest rate. Monetary contraction or monetary tightening refers to a decrease in the money supply. An increase in the money supply is called monetary expansion. Monetary policy does not affect the IS curve, only the LM curve. Example, an increase in the money supply shifts the LM curve down. Monetary policy activity and the interest rate. Here the effect of the monetary expansion. Monetary expansion lead to higher output and a lower interest rate. So the LM curve automatically shift downward. Using a fiscal Using a policy mix or the combination of monetary and fiscal policy is known as the monetary fiscal policy max, or we can say simply the policy max. So the effect of fiscal and monetary policy. Whenever there is increase in taxes, the IS curve shift toward left, the Elim curve not shift, and the movement of the output downward and the interest rate also down. So whenever there is decrease in taxes, the Elim curve not shifted and the IS curve shift toward the right direction. Moment of output is upward and the moment of interest rate is up. Whenever there is increase in spending, the IS curve shift toward the right and the moment of output increase and the interest rate also high. Increase in money, so the IS curve is not shifted and the LM curve shift downward. The moment of output is up and the moment of interest rate down. And whenever there is decrease in money, so the shift of the LM curve is high or upside and the moment of output is down and the interest rate is high. Real sector equilibrium, the IS curve, or we can say the goods market. The IS curve comprises all combination of the interest rate. One is income and the second I is the interest rate and the income is the Y, such that the real sector of the economy is in equilibrium. So investment should depend inversely on the interest rate. As interest rate rise, the cost of borrowing rise. So interest rate, or we can say I, falls. As before, consumption depends positively on income. So also export and government spending G are fixed. The IS curve is the relationship between the interest rate and the output, or we can say Y. As the interest rate fall, investment increases, thereby increasing Y. As the interest rate rises, investment decreases, thereby decreasing Y. So therefore the IS curve is downward. Or let's examine the relationship of the IS. A reduction in the interest rate has now two effects. Number one is it determines an increase in investment lead to increased demand and the output. It leads to a decrease in the net export. Whenever there is increase in net export, so the demand increases and the output increases. Both effects are in the same direction. In the open economy as in closed economy, IS is downward sloping inverse relation between BOP equilibrium or balance of payment equilibrium, the BP curve. The BP curve comprises all combination of interest rate I and the income Y such that the balance of equilibrium. The BP curve is the relationship between the interest rate and Y. If Y increases and I is unchanged, M will increase and the BOP deficit will open. To return to BOP balance, I must rise. Interest rate must rise. This would trigger net short-term capital inflow. Therefore, the BP curve is upward slope. Alternative exchange rate regimes. Flexible exchange rates. The exchange rate are determined on a daily basis by the market transaction. And the second is the fixed exchange rate. Central banks are committed to buy any amount of domestic currency and to sell any amount of foreign currency at a given exchange. Some central banks act under implicit and explicit exchange rate trigger targets. These targets are usually band or ranges rather than specific. Some countries maintain a fixed exchange rate in terms of the dollars or Other currencies, some foreign currency, they peg their currency to the dollar or the euro. Some currencies operate under a crawling peg. These countries have an exchange rate adjustment in which a par value of a fixed exchange rate is allowed to fluctuate within a certain range of values. The par value is adjusted for inflation and other market factors. A crawling peg allows the exchange rate to adjust over time, hence crawl rather than be adjusted by a sudden or dramatic currency devaluation which would create instability. Nominal exchange rates. Reminder, nominal exchange rate is the relative price of two currencies. Nominal exchange rates between two currencies can be quoted in one of two ways. Number one is the price of the domestic currency in terms of the foreign currency, the amount of foreign currency which is needed to buy 1 unit of domestic currency. For example, the price of €1 in terms of. Number two, as the price of the foreign currency in terms of the domestic currency, the amount of domestic currency which is needed to buy 1 unit of foreign currency. For example, exchange rate dollar by euro is equals to 1. Nominal exchange rate. We adopt definition 1. Nominal exchange rate as the price of the domestic currency in terms of the foreign currency. An appreciation of the domestic currency is an increase in the price of the domestic currency in terms of the foreign currency, which corresponds to an increase in the domestic bonds versus foreign bonds. We assume that an increase in the domestic interest rate, for example, after a monetary contraction, will cause the demand for domestic bond to rise. As investors switch from foreign to nominal currency, the national currency, domestic bond versus foreign bond. In a diagrammatic way, the relation between the interest rate and the exchange rate implied by interest parity. A high domestic interest rate lead to a higher exchange rate and appreciation as in the diagram. On y-axis we have domestic interest rate I and on x-axis we have exchange rate. So interest parity relation is given at point A where the interest rate and the exchange rate both intersect at equilibrium point which is known as A. So a higher domestic interest rate lead to a higher exchange rate. It means there is a positive relation or we can say an appreciation. Fiscal and monetary policy under flexible exchange rate. Number one, fiscal policy. Flexible exchange rate. Let's suppose that the government increases G without increasing T. As a consequence, IS shift to the right, Y and I increase, and the net export increases. So goods market equilibrium imply that output depend among other factor on the interest rate and the exchange rate. Y equal to C Y minus T plus I YI plus G plus NX are export import into Y static or the effect of an increase in government spending. An increase in government spending lead to an increase in output, an increase in interest rate, and an appreciation. So the diagram we already understood the effect of the policy of an open economy. So the increase in the government spending shift the IS curve to the right. It shifts neither the LM curve nor the interest parity interest rate. The currency depreciates when IS shift to the left and appreciate when the IS shift to the right. So let's analyze what happened to the various components of demand when the government increases spending. Consumption and government spending both go up. The effect of government spending on investment, which was ambiguous in the closed economy, remain ambiguous in the open economy. When the exchange rate is flexible, movement of the exchange rate tend to dampen the output effect of the ice shocks. Suppose that a particular country has a flexible exchange rate, so the short-run effect of a fall in business confidence on output, the interest rate and the exchange rate. The answer is income decreases, investment decreases. Income output decreases, so the interest rate decreases. The currency depreciates. As a consequence, the net export import increases. The exchange rate movement dampen the effect of the fall in business. Monetary policy flexible exchange rate hypothesis and expansionary monetary policy. LM shift down, so the interest rate decreases, output increases as a consequence, and investment increases, so the uh, export import depreciate or the net export depreciate, so provided that the Marshall-Lerner condition holds, a net export import increases. Let's assume on the contrary are restrictionary monetary. So the effect of the monetary policy in an open economy, the effect of the monetary contraction. A monetary contraction lead to a decrease in output, an increase in the interest rate, and an appreciation. So a monetary contraction shift the Asalam curve up. It shift neither the IS curve nor the interest parity curve. Fiscal and monetary policies under fixed exchange rate. Pegging the exchange rate turns the interest parity relation into 1 plus IT, or the interest rate of the current equals to 1 plus IT approaches to IT equals to IT steady. In words, under fixed exchange rate and perfect capital mobility, the domestic interest rate must be equal to the foreign interest rate. Domestic is the IoT and the foreign is the IT static. So monetary policy fixed exchange rate. The central bank is bound to adjust domestic money supply in order to maintain the foreign reserves. So domestic monetary policy is totally ineffective. The impossible trinity. A country cannot have simultaneously monetary independence, exchange rate stability, and perfect capital mobility. Devaluation. For devaluation to occur, the central bank buys foreign assets so that the domestic money supply increases. The interest rate fall, causing a fall in the return on domestic currency assets. Domestic goods are cheaper, so aggregate demand and output increase. Official international reserve asset or foreign bond increases. Financial crisis and capital flight. When a central bank does not have enough official international reserve assets to maintain a fixed exchange rate, a balance of payment crisis results. To sustain a fixed exchange rate, the central bank must have enough foreign assets to sell in order to satisfy the demand for them at the fixed exchange rate. Financial crisis and capital flight. So, investor may expect that the domestic currency will be devalued, causing them to want foreign assets instead of domestic assets whose value is expected to fall soon. Number one, this expectation or fear only make the balance of payment crisis worse. Investors rush to change their domestic assets into foreign assets, depleting the stock of official international reserve asset more quickly. Number two, as a result, financial capital is quickly moved from domestic asset to foreign asset. Capital flight. The domestic economy has a shortage of financial capital for investment and has low aggregate demand. To avoid this outcome, domestic asset must offer a high interest rate to entice investors to hold them. The central bank can push the interest rate higher by reducing the money supply by selling foreign assets. And number four, as a result, the domestic economy may face a high interest rate, reduced money supply, low aggregate demand, low output, and low employment. Fiscal policy and fixed exchange rate. Under a fixed exchange rate system, fiscal policy is more effective than under a flexible exchange rate system. Let's assume a fiscal expansion. The central bank must accommodate the increased demand for money by increasing fiscal policy under fixed exchange rate in a diagrammatical form. The effect of the fiscal expansion under fixed exchange rate. Under flexible exchange rates, a fiscal expansion increases output from Y1 to YB. Under a fixed exchange rate, output increases from YA to YC. So the central bank must accommodate the resulting increase in the demand for money. There is a number of reasons why countries choosing to fix its interest rate appear to a bad idea. By fixing the exchange rate, a country gave up a powerful tool for correcting trade imbalances or changing the level of economic activity. By committing to a particular exchange rate, a country also gives up control of its interest rate, and they must match movement in the foreign interest rate, risking unwanted effects on its own activity. Exchange rate crisis under fixed exchange rates. German unification and the EMS. Under a fixed exchange rate system, no individual country can change its interest rate if the other countries do not change theirs as well. So there are two possible arrangements. Number one, all the member countries coordinate changes in their interest rate. The second one country take the lead and the other follow. Case 2 is what happened in the EMS with Germany as the leader. During the 1980s, European countries shared similar goals and were happy to let the Bundesbank take the lead. In 1990, however, German unification led to a sharp divergence in goals between the Bundesbank and other European central banks. Large budget deficits triggered by transfer to people and public investment in Eastern Germany led to a large increase in demand and in the price level in Germany. The Bundesbank reacted by adopting a restrictionary monetary policy. The result was a large increase in interest rate. This was probably the right policy mix for Germany. For the other European countries, however, it was totally inappropriate. To stay in the EMS, however, they had to adopt German interest rate. The net result was a sharp decrease in demand and in output in other countries, France, Italy, UK, and Netherlands. Fiscal policy under fixed exchange rate. There are a number of reasons why country choosing to fix its interest rate appear to be a bad idea. By fixing the exchange rate, a country gave up a powerful tool to correcting trade imbalances or changing the level of economic activity. By committing a particular exchange rate, a country also gave up control to its interest rate and they must match movement in the foreign interest rate, risking unwanted effect on its effects of official changes in the exchange rate system. Obviously, to maintain a fixed exchange rate system, a country would not want to devalue or revalue the currency often. However, such policies action are occasionally required. What will be the if the home country's exchange rate is devalued, export rise and import fall. This shifts both the IS and the BP curve rightward. The money supply must be expanded. The central bank must buy foreign exchange. This means the LM curve also shifts rightward. The devaluation increase the output or Y. The bottom line, when capital is relatively immobile, a devaluation increases national income. When capital is relatively mobile, a devaluation increases national income to an even greater extent.